There are two simple pieces of evidence from two caves that Neanderthals did not freely walk around, and consequently were not hunter-gatherers, but rather were carried and quarantined by another group, which we claim to be humans. Once this is recognized, it becomes obvious that the Neanderthals were not hunter-gatherers, as consensus as well as alternative historians see and present them till today. Further, there also are simple pieces of evidence that archaeological sites across Europe, Western Eurasia, and in fact across all of the world, which also involve most extinct hominins, which include Neanderthals, are located across key connections, most of the time connections of strategic locations, this even across ocean circulations, especially crossing points and/or locations suitable as ports as well as for local fishing, including whale hunting, as well as their handling, and that are also defensible. If this is true, almost consequential, one can deduce that in all cases of locations with extinct hominins, which include Neanderthals as well as Denisovans, were places that were departures and/or subject of mining expeditions, in second instance were places for cradles of all kinds of hominins, and in third instance were places for expansions. The Americas are the only continent that are directly exposed to all of the most important and strongest ocean circulations, that are the Pacific and Atlantic circulations. Ancestral markers systematically point to the Americas, or more specifically to South America and the Amazon forest, as the origin of all humans. In other words, of American origin or out of the Americas. Apart from the Americas ticking all the above boxes, they present a high concentration of departures and mining expeditions, as well as the consequential food processing industries that can and probably did include megafauna, fauna, mussels, and whale handling. Next to the Americas, Sulawesi, Java, and China tick most boxes, and when it comes to being a potential crossover or destination, Sulawesi and China, as well as the West and East African, West European and West Eurasian facades, sea and river extensions, tick most boxes. The West and East African, most enigmatic facades, sea and river extensions that are touted by consensus to be places of origin are exactly in locations that are clear landing places of the above-mentioned oceanic circulations, and tick all or most of the boxes that are related to mining, crossing over, extensions and cradles. There are clear spatial and temporal associations that link exactly Sulawesi in Wallacea, Java in Sunderland, as well as China in Far East Asia to the over 1 million years old ancient locations of extinct hominin sites. Java is renowned for presenting at least 30 Homo erectus fossils in just one single site, in fact an island in a river, and consequently exposed to the most important of the above-mentioned ocean circulations. While these fossils are not dated 2 millions of years old, we all are aware that Homo erectus fossils could be as old as 2 millions of years old, or even older. The Mediterranean is an obvious sea extension of the Atlantic Ocean and its circulations. We do not want to bother with associations and probabilities, but the above reasoning and set out are clear indications for human history and expansions of all humans across the world. At the same time, they prove one or more ancient advanced civilizations, with clear advancement in oceanic navigation across continents, mining, and food processing. In fact, there is no other way to explain the 2 million-year-old spreading of large numbers, and in fact whole groups, of now extinct hominins across all continents. The attempt of consensus to explain such spreading with accidental crossings and settlements is very weak and improbable, since it is proven that accidental crossing and settlement of supposedly wild monkeys from Africa to South America, which is the closest crossing between continents, provingly took 50 million years. Even in this case, there is only suppositions and no proof this crossing and settlement was in fact accidental. Neanderthals rather than hunter-gatherers are a kind of working class, in an organized society, with specific tasks. The Neanderthal tasks were mining and in second instance also megafauna and fauna handling, managing megafauna and fauna kill sites, and possibly also a kind of industrial-scale food processing. In other videos we present much more evidence and present evidence that the organized society that deployed them are advanced navigators and make part of a global advanced civilization or culture. For these specific tasks, the Neanderthals were handed dedicated tools which we claim to be from and produced by a stone tool-making class of humans. The tools found are not typical hunter-gatherer tools, but rather mining and fauna handling tools. The Mandarin Cave in France presents alternating layers of human and Neanderthal artifacts. There is clear evidence that Neanderthals and humans occupied the same cave, but at different and alternating times, and that they were strictly separated during each occupation. The latest Neanderthals were found in locations spread over Europe and possibly beyond. For instance, one group was found in Gibraltar in the south of Spain, and another group was found in the Rhône Valley in France. Between these two sites, several other Neanderthal groups lived concurrently with them. Despite all this, in each of these locations they had lived in isolation from other Neanderthals for over 50,000 years. Both sites are primarily and most exposed to Gibraltar, the Atlantic Ocean, and, indirectly, the Americas, much more so than Africa. We point out the next facts. A. Neanderthals inhabited the same cave in alternating periods, but strictly isolated from certain humans. B. Neanderthals were genetically isolated or quarantined, even from other Neanderthals, within or, at best, within a very short distance of these caves. C. Neanderthal tools were not the tools of hunter-gatherers, found in large quantities, as well as not in the reach of these Neanderthals. This all leads to the conclusions argued in the beginning of this video. A. That the Neanderthals were not at all typical hunter-gatherers. B. That the Neanderthals were a kind of a by humans transported, quarantined, and deployed working class, with specific tasks, in an organized society. With the specific tasks being mining and management of megafauna and fauna, management of megafauna and fauna killing sites, and possibly also a type of industrial-scale food processing, in other words, a type of animal husbandry. C. That Neanderthals were given dedicated stone tools, which we claim to be made by and from a class of humans who made stone tools and produced them. D. That Neanderthals were transported by others, which we claim to be a class of humans who navigated. There is much other evidence and locations that confirm and/or provide more information, but for now we wanted to keep this video short and as simple as possible. Indirectly in this video there are some provisory indications that the Neanderthals as well as the humans that deployed them did not have their origin in Africa, but in the Americas instead. A very extensive proof of this is provided in other videos and series. In other videos we argue and prove that human expansions carrying now extinct hominins was typical for all expansions across the world. In the case of Europe these now extinct hominins were Neanderthals. In other parts of the world it were other now extinct hominins, amongst others Denisovans, which after all are mere sister groups of the Neanderthals, and have to them identical DNA, and that is exactly why they are classified and called sister groups. While there was at least one example of an industrial-scale food processing site of over 100,000 years old in Germany and Europe, there were several and also older mining sites in Europe, and that is exactly the reason why Neanderthal fossils were and still are found systematically in ancient and often modern mines. Since this advanced civilization and industrial activities were global, and making intense use of the oceanic circulations between continents, there is clear evidence of several ancient mines, industrial scale or in food processing along these intensive used oceanic circulations, like amongst many others in the Plain of Jars, or Valley of Jars in Sulawesi and Laos. We know more about megafauna and fauna handling sites in country-scaled valleys across the world, and especially in South America, amongst others in the Amazon forest. Industrial scale or in food processing, and certainly the megafauna and fauna handling sites in country-scale valleys are systematically found strategically at the onsets of the oceanic circulations, that as we argued this global ancient advanced civilization made extensive use of.